Hi friends, this is Trish and welcome to Happy Holy Healthy Life. Today I want to talk to you guys about how to face your temptations and overcome your sins. I want to give you about 6 practical steps, and then at the end of the video, in case you're curious, I will tell you guys about some of the temptations and sins that I've overcome in my life and some of the ones that I'm still working on that you can pray for me about, okay? So let's go ahead and jump right in and start with step number 1. And let me tell you guys, this is the most important step. This is the one that will ultimately change your life. All right. So what you want to do in your area of sin and struggle is you want to change your thinking about that sin. Now, what do I mean by that? It's really actually kind of simple. As humans, we have 2 major motivations in life. We're motivated by pleasure or happiness, or we're motivated by avoiding pain. So the problem is, in whatever area of sin you're struggling with, in your heart, in your mind, in your belief system, you are thinking that that thing is bringing you some kind of happiness instead of seeing how it's destroying your life and how it's bringing you pain in the long run. And that's exactly what Satan does. Think about the Garden of Eden. He busted out that fruit to Eve and said, oh, this fruit is going to give you a delicious taste in your mouth. It's going to make you like God. It's going to make you wise. Isn't it so beautiful? And Satan basically played up the happiness and the pleasure that Eve would experience, and he casually failed to mention that it was going to bring death and disease and war and famine and bring down all of civilization for thousands of years later. So that's exactly what happens to us, though, in whatever area of sin that we're bound in. Some part of us is truly and deeply believing that this sin is going to give us happiness, and another part of us knows that it's hurting us somehow and it's making our life worse. But if you want to think of it in a simple way, you can almost think of it as a balance beam. If we more so focus on the so-called happiness or pleasure that sin gives us, then we focus on the pain, destruction, and long-term consequences, then we're oftentimes going to go with that sin. And the problem is, in certain areas, sometimes we don't even know exactly why something is wrong. We might just know, oh, God says not to do this. So that's where we really need to hone in. We need to change our beliefs about the sin, and the Bible calls it the renewing of our mind, okay? Now, it's kind of cool because I read a lot of science and I like psychology and all of that stuff. So even scientists and psychologists will agree that it's possible to change your brain and change your thinking. And when you do that, your behavior is actually going to change. So I want to just give you a couple of quick tips on how to do this. So number 1, as you're trying to change your thinking about your sin, you want to know your why. You have to really, truly want to change in order to change. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves why that is. So think about how this sin area is impacting your health, your relationship with God, your family, your friends, your future. Think about everything, paint out a whole picture, and I want you to really make yourself a really clear list about all of the ways that this sin is hurting you. If you're having trouble figuring it out, do a quick Google search on what the Bible has to say about whatever sin it is that you're struggling with. And as you put your mind on the truth, over time, it's going to work out where you don't desire that sin the same way anymore, or you're going to be able to immediately call to mind how destructive it is and all the pain it's going to bring, and that's going to be more of a motivation than whatever temporary pleasure that sin is bringing you. So number 1 is to change your thinking about the sin and renew your mind about the sin. Number 2 is to set up barriers to make it harder for yourself to engage in this sin. Or even if it's a bad habit, it doesn't even have to be a sin. So I'm sure you guys have heard about all kinds of apps, that can block out certain inappropriate websites. Some people have turned their cable off completely. Some people that are on a diet will not bring certain foods in their house, or they will literally lock them up in a safe so they have to go through the extra steps to get to them. If it's something simple like, maybe you're spending too much time on your cell phone, there's all kind of little gadgets and gizmos that can, set up warnings or different kind of notifications for you. But it's kind of like a stopgap as as you're still in the struggle. It takes some time to renew your mind, to change your beliefs and desires. So while you're in that process of renewing your mind, you just kind of want to make it a little bit harder for yourself to engage in the sin. And this works even with practical everyday matters. If you tend to snooze your alarm clock 1,000 times, or if you tend to kind of get, when you wake up, just grab your phone and start scrolling, even doing simple things like putting your phone across the room, it's the same concept. You're making it harder for yourself to make the wrong choice. Number 3 is you want to know your times of greatest temptation. This is so important. In the recovery community, they have an acronym called HALT. So you want to check if you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and you want to think about what are the times of day that you find yourself getting stuck in this sin or this temptation or problem the most. And as you start to know yourself, you can begin to plan ahead. And that is step number 4. You want to plan out substitutes for the times that you're going to be most tempted. So for me, I really like sugar a lot. And a lot of times I will have the super bad habit of going all day without really eating anything. And then after 6, I'm ravenously hungry and I know my husband's heading home from work. So then I call him and I'm like, bring home Cheesecake Factory, bring home Chipotle, and why don't you bring home some Starbucks too? And I just like go bananas, right? Well, if I was applying this principle of knowing my times of temptation and planning a substitute, I could plan out, depending on my diet of the week, maybe I can have myself a ketogenic shake at 6 o'clock, or maybe if I'm doing, like a fruit-based diet, I can plan out a smoothie. So you get the idea. You're knowing when you're going to be tempted and you're pre-planning what you're going to do that's healthy and good to substitute for that bad area. All right. Number 5 is you want to have accountability. Now, it depends on what kind of personality you have, but for me, this is one of the absolute hardest because it can be difficult sometimes to trust other people with your deepest, darkest secrets. But there are really awesome Christian groups like Celebrate Recovery. There's support groups out there. There's online support groups. There's, Facebook groups of people that support each other and hold each other accountable. So even if you don't have somebody in your everyday life that can hold you accountable, I would highly encourage you to join a web-based group or even like a Zoom group that meets for accountability on whatever issue you're struggling with. Okay, number 6, I probably say it in each video, but prayer and fasting, it is so important, especially if you really want to break a hold or a grip on, something. Jesus talks about when it comes down to like demonic oppression and strongholds, some things come out only by fasting and prayer. So if you feel like you've just tried everything under the sun and this bad boy is not breaking, then you really want to engage in some prayer and fasting and have some other people that are praying for you. I want to give you one more bonus tip. A really great system that has helped me so much is there's a minister by the name of Barb Raveling. She's an excellent Bible teacher, and she has so many free resources on the renewing of the mind. She has pre-made questions and templates and scriptures and all of these things to help you out if you're in an area of struggle. Now, as promised, I kind of just want to talk to you about some of the temptations and trials that I've overcome and some that I am currently struggling with. And I want to go back to step number 1 and tell you how the renewing of the mind helped me overcome some of those old struggles. So back in the day, I was, a very different person than I am today. And I had very different convictions, than I do now. And I really had a problem being drawn to dark, scary, demonic things. So I really watched a lot of really terrible horror movies, like lots of scary movies. I would listen to really crazy, dark, heavy metal music like Marilyn Manson and Slipknot and A Perfect Circle and just like all of these really dark, kind of satanic bands. And then on top of that, because of my parents, I'm blaming my parents on this one, I was really interested in like true crime and like gruesome documentaries that were real. And it really actually ended up bringing a lot of darkness into my life. And I didn't realize it at the time, but as I, kind of started learning more about the spirit world, I started to learn that certain doors we can open certain doors that will welcome demonic influences in our life. And that's exactly what happened to me. I had really terrible nightmares. I'm talking for years of my life. There was so much kind of torment at night that I really had a hard time sleeping because all of these these gruesome, terrifying images would pop up in my head, and I would feel like I was imagining evil things around every corner, and I couldn't sleep. And then when I did sleep, I would have nightmares. I would have sleep paralysis where I felt like I couldn't move or scream or anything like that. I just really had a lot of darkness and oppression in my life and in my mind. And as a younger Christian, I didn't really associate that with the things that I was watching, listening to, soaking in, because nobody had ever really taught that to me. And that's just kind of how my household was, to be honest. And so I was really tempted, by darkness, and it took a while, but eventually as I started to learn to change my association, instead of seeing, a horror movie preview and thinking, ooh, this is exciting and fun, and I can't wait to see this movie, I thought, oh wow, that looks really dark and demonic and evil, and that's terrible. When I would see, a new CD come out from a band that I used to follow, instead of saying like, oh, I can't wait to listen to that, I would think like, oh, I don't want that trash like in my heart, in my spirit, in my life. When I would hear about, some new crazy, true crime documentary or something, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I want to know every detail of what happened, that's so fascinating, I thought, you know what, I don't really need that darkness and that fear, giving me more anxiety in my life. I just don't need it. So that's kind of an example of how over time my associations changed. I stopped associating those dark demonic things with something fun and exciting, and I started associating them with something dark and evil and gross, and something that would bring me demonic oppression. And I could actually look at the results about how my life used to be versus how it is now and see those differences. So basically, whatever sin you're struggling with, you've got to do the same thing. No matter what it is, I want you to really ask the Holy Spirit to help you to see the sin the way He sees it. Help you to be as grossed out about certain sins as, He is, so that you can truly have the mind of Christ. And that will help you to discern. That will help you to say no to ungodliness. It'll give you so much grace. Whereas if you still think the thing is beautiful and fun and awesome and it's going to make you happy, then it's just going to be like you're gritting your teeth and trying to fight what feels like yourself in order to push it away. But as you change your beliefs, it's going to change your desires, and then you're going to be free from it. Now, things that I still struggle with, I already mentioned it. Sugar diet is a huge one. That's been actually a massive battle in my life. I also still really do like politics, news, conspiracies, different things like that. I find it really interesting, although a lot of times it's really negative and it's really like angry and horrible. I still find myself kind of tempted and drawn to just like watch it and get into it. And then also another huge temptation of mine is just isolation. I actually still battle a lot of social anxiety, so it's really tempting for me to like stay in the house and not go anywhere, not go to small group, not go to church, not be around people, not go to the grocery store, not go to the gym. Like I could literally stay inside all day, and that can be a temptation, but those are all things that I have to battle, and I have to do what I'm telling you to do. I have to renew my mind about those areas so that when I have that temptation pop up, I think about all the negatives instead of thinking about the positives. So let me know how you're doing, any battles that you've overcome, any ones that you're still facing, and I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. I am really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So if you can help me by sharing these videos with your friends, posting them around, liking and commenting, that would help me so much, and I'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions for me or you have any video ideas, I would love for you to let me know, and I'll see what I can do. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.